Is it just me? Okay, so colleagues, I think we can start. So thank you very much to everybody for being here. It's wonderful, wonderful that you are. We are going to do a recording of this session, so that anybody that is interested in hearing, more about Pi and following up on issues, we've actually got the recording. But what we're very lucky to have is Reggy Moalusi, who is the executive director of SANEF, with us today. Let me just turn my camera on. It really is fabulous to have you here, Reggy. I mean, I really don't think anybody needs to get an introduction to you, because I think pretty much everybody knows you. But then very briefly, you have been the executive of SANEF for guessing 5 years at least, but you've had a very long history with SANEF, because you were the Secretary General, you've been an editor, journalist, working journalist. You've got a real deep understanding of the media sector. And of course, now you've been involved with this very important Pi campaign, which we've heard a lot about, because we've had people from Africa Czech. We also had William Bird from Moxie Africa, previously Media Monitoring Africa, coming and speaking to us about all the different possibilities. And so, yeah, over to you. We'd love to hear what you're doing as SANEF around the elections, but more about Pi. We've been told that it would be a very good idea for us to join Pi. So we'd like to hear from you around that. It seems that individual publishers can actually join Pi and then have access to a number of resources and information, etc. So over to you, Reggy. Yeah, please go ahead.
No, thanks a lot, Kate. Thanks a lot, and thanks for that very kind introduction. Obviously, yeah, as Kate said, my name is Reggy, and I work for SANEF as Executive Director. Has been in the position since June 2021. So, Pi, we'll talk about Pi just now, which stands for Partnership for Information Integrity in Elections. And it's essentially a partnership between Africa Czech, Moxie Africa, which used to be Media Monitoring Africa, and ourselves as SANEF. But the three organizations besides Pi are also involved with SALGA, with the Local Government Association, with MDDA, with the IEC as well. What have we been doing? We have been going around provinces. We just came back from Cape Town. That's the latest province we did, where we were essentially training journalists, whether community, whether mainstream. Fortunately, the role of the MDDA has been one where they were facilitating transport for the community media journalists to attend. So we've been to 8 provinces so far. There's one last province that's left, and that's the Northern Cape. And with the Northern Cape, we chose a very interesting venue, which is Uppington. Uppington, why? Because it's sort of central, and for all journalists based in the Northern Cape to attend the training. That will be next month in July. So that will be the last training, and it will be the last training because the IEC asked that after July, they are going to be extremely busy in terms of elections, in terms of getting ready for November 4. You may know that sometime, not this coming weekend, but I think the weekend of the 20th and 21st, that's the voter registration weekend. So that's where we at with that training of journalists. On our side, as SANEF, we were fortunate to get funding from the Millennium Trust that has funded our participation in this partnership for these elections. Now come to Pi. Pi was essentially conceptualized sometime, when was it? Last year, through a conversation between myself and William, and then we went on and said it should be a partnership, but a partnership based on information integrity in elections. That's what we want to do. That's why we've been going around funders trying to get some money. And our argument, our presentation to these funders really is that the local government election, this particular edition, is quite critical for South Africa. It's critical because there is rising political polarization. There is widespread digital manipulation. There is the rise of AI and different AI platforms that are there and that are, pushing misinformation and disinformation. So we said, look, we can be the free organizations, but obviously we will open it up to other organizations to join, yourselves as AIP, yourselves as independent publishers, where you see that you can play a role. But the role of the free organizations, when we conceptualized the whole thing, we said, look, we want Moalusi Africa to focus on the technical monitoring, really, of the elections. Africa Check is quite good when it comes to verifying everything. They've got that expertise. When it comes to journalistic integrity and advocacy, SANEF is there. So that's why we said, look, SANEF must target building capacity for journalists and building capacity as well for journalists that they can use when they approach election officials, that they can use when they are in their communities. And then we also said, excuse me, and we also said, look, Africa Check, besides the verification and all of that, Africa Check can also pre-bank and do explanatory content when it comes to false narratives that we see on the likes of your WhatsApp, on the likes of your Facebook, your X, and so forth. Media monitoring, as you may say, Moalusi Africa, I mean, as you may know, they've got Real 411, which the IEC knows and the IEC has used before. And it's quite good when it comes to real-time monitoring, when it comes to rapid response, when it comes to election misinformation and disinformation, particularly across social media platforms. So those are the roles of the current free organizations and how we want to sort of do the work, particularly when we wrap up Uppington as the last province, Northern Cape next month. Hopefully we can then, leading up to November 4, start doing this work. Then if I may just do a brief painting of a picture of the current context where we at when it comes to the challenges, the risks, and all of that. We have seen the last election, we were dealing with deepfakes. Now, over and beyond deepfakes, of late, for these elections, we are now seeing a really worrying rise of generative AI and synthetic media, where we are now, as the media, if we are not careful, we may as well fall into the risk of using that AI-generated content, where there's, stuff like possibly staged violence, fake statements by election officials. We have already seen with the GNU targeted ministers like Nji Motshekga what has happened with her. And that was a clear case of AI, what AI can do. Now, based on that, hence if you look at ourselves as an industry, and this is one conversation that we felt with the MDPMI as well, that it wasn't really touched on, but we need to touch on as an industry, particularly the organizations, including AIP, that submitted to the Competition Commission to say, the MDPMI talks about platform accountability, but it doesn't really touch on what is the future and role of AI in the media, particularly when it comes to such an important news year of elections in our country, where we now say platform accountability needs to go with the responsible usage of AI in those platforms. And we are now increasingly globally even where we see the inequality when it comes to the lack of accountability by platforms where they don't want to align with any democratic values. They don't want to devote any sufficient resources to elections, to seeing democratic elections, to say, here's our platforms and this is what we need to do to hold our users accountable. That's the one part. We then also now see the rise of paid influence. We see disgusting users like your Chris Excel on social media, where clearly this is paid influence and it's on the rise, where these guys, they've got so many followers and the followers believe whatever they say, they can sway a different context and view. And they can also be paid by certain political players to promote their parties, their hashtags, their personalities. So that's the other part. Continuing with this context, we now see the worrying rise in journalist safety and newsroom fatigue. Let's start with the safety. We saw recently in Durban where journalists were trying to cover a protest and they were intimidated and their stuff was taken. I think they were the witness journalists and covering the Municipal Workers Union. I know that I spoke to the news editor at Witness. We were trying to assist them. So that's the one part. We didn't deal, while we worried about journalist safety, we are also worried about newsroom fatigue, where journalists and our young reporters, women especially, they continue to face harassment, intimidation, doxing, physical threats, cyberbullying. And when we look at the measures to mitigate against those, they are not encouraging. We haven't seen anyone facing the consequences when it comes to that. We then want to focus on the vulnerability of the LGE itself. So there are thousands of candidates, there are decentralized processes, and local elections, as you may know, are local elections in communities. And what is the one platform in communities that is quite popular, that we all use, even on this call, is WhatsApp. And WhatsApp drive community networks. And that's quite hard to trace in real time. And it's not easy where you can say, okay, let me comment on this and let me demystify whatever untruth is being told. That's also the one part that where we need to say for journalists, how can we do that living in these communities? Some of the demystification, you might not be popular and you might not be liked. And some people may even say, I know who you are, I know where you live, I know where your children go to school. But that's unfortunately the responsibility that we need to get into and incorporate. So the last one in the current context will be the Electoral Act itself, the changes to the Electoral Act, where we now see independent candidates running locally. And they pose a different set of challenges for us as the media because they want to be covered. But over and above that, the other challenge is the Party Political Funding Act, where we now have to be careful as we cover certain parties, certain individuals, to say, what is the influence? Who's paying here? Who's the master? And we all know how our politics work to drive narratives and all of that. So that's the context. And the last election in 2024, we worked with IEC, with the IEC. We worked with MMA, now Moxie. And the last election, we faced challenges where it was the formation of the MK party. We even thought we'll have difficulty with the EFF, but we in fact had difficulty with the MK party. because it was being formed. There were marches, our journalists were harassed. The late Sebabatso Mosamo was grabbed by her breasts at Orlando Stadium. There were no consequences. We released the statement, but that's a frustration. You release the statement, then what? And then as a result, we submitted a statement of commitment on media freedom and the protection of journalists, which is there on our SANEF elections portal, that the IEC has repeatedly, even Mr. Michael Hendricks in the Western Cape, their PEO, Provincial Electoral Officer, on Tuesday emphasized that they are aware of the statement of commitment and they want the media to be equipped to do their job, and they want the media equally to be held accountable. So that's what we did. Real 411 I spoke about, that's what Moalusi was doing. Africa Check started its relationship with the IEC as well to assist where it can. So yeah, so that's where we at. Perhaps let me pause, Kate, and then I know it's a lot of information. Let me pause, and if there are any questions at this stage, I can take those questions. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Reggy. Great. So, colleagues, please go ahead. Has anyone got any questions for Reggy? I know that I just have one question, Reggy, which is, so we've got this workshop that's happening in the Northern Cape now. So in terms of further trainings that the PI team is going to do, what further trainings are there? And then just in terms of people that might have missed these workshops, because I know that they have been excellent. I mean, you've had all the key players at them, but I think that some of our members have missed them for various reasons. Is there a possibility? I mean, my understanding was that there were physical kind of face-to-face workshops. So it's probably, it's not that you would necessarily have had a recording or anything, but is there somewhere to go to kind of gather some of those resources if you missed those workshops? Yeah, thank you. And then, of course, colleagues, please put your questions forward.
So, Kate, the good news is that, yes, there's the last workshop in Abington, but further to that, if you didn't participate or you missed it, for AIP, we can even organize an online workshop, day-long training for AIP members. As long as you guys have the appetite for that, we have just done, we had a request from Arena for their journalists. We did that. It was hybrid. We went to Parktown. In the room, we had about 20 of their journalists, another 60 joined online. We did the training, and it wasn't for long. We are now sitting with a request from independent newspapers. They want us to come and do the same thing, which we will certainly go and do for them. And if you feel that there are members, AIP members who missed it, and you've got the appetite for an online training that we can do, most certainly we can organize that.
Reggy, thank you. I think that sounds wonderful. I don't know, colleagues, do you think that's a good idea? I certainly think that sounds excellent. And I can take it to our training committee. Yeah, I see thumbs up. Fantastic. So Reggy, we will definitely talk about that offline and make a plan. It would be fantastic to be able to do that. And also doing it online will allow us to record it as well quite easily. For anybody that can't attend. So yeah, fantastic. Colleagues, other questions to Reggy? Shirley, please go ahead.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, Reggy. So I wanted to ask, how can we as community publishers access funding or partnership support through SANEF and all the work that you're doing, PI, and related stakeholders to run grassroots voter education and public interest elections campaigns ahead of the our upcoming elections. For us as hyperlocal independents, we're ready to play our role at hyperlocal level, but we need support to produce credible content, like election booklets or a voter hub on our websites and so on, that will help communities participate meaningfully towards democracy.
Thanks, Shirley. I think a lot of people are asking that question, Reggie. So thanks for that.
No, look, Shirley, obviously, I mean, ourselves as well, we are applying for this funding. And for PAYA, the upcoming training, we're not even sure that we will get that training, that funding. We are waiting to get feedback on that. And I mean, your question, I think it came up in Cape Town as well when we were there, but it was directed at the IEC to say, how can it go to grassroots level and help the communities and all of that to sort of take the training, make communities understand. And I think that's where the difficulty sits. Because if you look at the funding community now, the funding scenario, I mean, Kate can attest to that. It's been quite difficult for all of us to try and get any kind of funding. It hasn't been an easy one. That much I can tell you. It hasn't been an easy one. But I think you're raising a key question here and a key important thing. But the reality, Shelley, is that no single publisher can get funding. And I say, I'm coming to Shelley, she's in the deep south of Joburg, I'm giving her funding. Then I'm going to Fanele Maseko, who's your neighbor in the Val, then I'm giving him funding. Then I'm coming to Tembi Moyo in Joburg, I'm giving her funding. But I think these will have to be either regionally coordinated or provincially, or not nationally. We can do regional and provincial, but it also goes to the issue of collaboration. And I think also the one criticism that keeps on coming is, yes, you are publishers in your communities, but you also have a role to play beyond just publishing. So that's one. But I think as we are here now, and we will be looking to the next national elections, that's one of the things we can explore, we can try to look into, where we say, look, this is what we can do, this is what we can try to assist in. But for now, at this stage, in June, Shelley, I can tell you, nah, not feasible, not now, not feasible.
Thanks, Reggie. I mean, I think that's very helpful too, because I think we've had a lot. I mean, Shirley's come to me. I mean, a lot of publishers have come to me and said, we really, really need funding. Just as Shirley said, for particular like elections, booklets, etc. But I think you're right, just in terms of a collective approach. And I think we need to think very carefully about that, because there's a lot of training, and the training is super helpful. But over and beyond that, we need money for the creation of resources and booklets and all that kind of stuff, which I think, Shirley, you're pointing to. But the thing is that we need to think strategically around how to do that. And I think you're right, Reggie, that we probably now are going to have to wait for the national elections in order to be able to do that and plan now. Because the funding environment is so tough, you literally have to start to talk to funders like a year or two or whatever in advance in order to be able to get that kind of funding. But Shirley, thank you. I think it's very helpful that you're putting that on the table, because I think up until now, a lot of the money has gone into trainings. And very successful trainings, but not so much into resources, and that's where we've got to push things. But the one thing which we are definitely pushing is trying to get advertising from the IEC. And we've spoken to the MDDA, GCIS, etc., and we're waiting for them to come back to us, Sandile Nene, people like that. you know, and hopefully that kind of advertising will then come in to our publications. I hope that helps, Shirley, and I hope that helps colleagues. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add to that, Reggie.
I think, yeah, I hear with the advertising, but this, I think now, since I joined SANEF in 2021, there were elections, and the question keeps on coming out. I mean, I was talking to some AIP members also in Cape Town yesterday, and they were just shocked that even to this day, to this time, they are still struggling to get, for instance, ShopRite advertising, which is unheard of. I mean, how can you struggle to get ShopRite advertising, whereas ShopRite has USafe, ShopRite in your own communities, but the agencies are not coming to you? I'm making that example, and I'm just saying, Kate, maybe it will be worthwhile to, besides what we are doing with the IEC, to try and get the IEC, Kate Bapela, Fikile Moya, David Mandaha, maybe also one of their seniors, to sort of bring in the agency that they use, and it explains to yourself as AIP that how does it work and how is this advertising allocated. I think when you go to GCIS and MDDA, you're doing it a long way around, whereas you can just go to IEC directly. They use an agency, and that agency must come on board. Same thing with beyond elections, with the likes of ShopRite, to say, why are guys not getting the regional advertising that they are supposed to get? But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Reggie. No, absolutely. I think just quickly on the IEC one, Shweshwe specifically organized a meeting last week on Thursday with the IEC, with all the community media people, to talk about various issues in terms of information around the elections, but also advertising. So I think the strategy from the side of the MDDA is a kind of collective strategy. But I do hear you. We could also go directly. So yeah. But thank you. Anton and then Ananias. Anton, please go ahead.
Hi, Kate. Hi, Reggie.
Hi, Anton.
Latch on to what Shirley has said, and it's not necessarily sort of criticism, rather an observation that it seems like a lot of energy and resources has been put into training. And nothing against training. I think we all sort of really understand the importance of that, but we need to be perhaps more pragmatic and see that, okay, well, what would small publishers, especially those in remote areas, what would help them to better not only cover the coming election, but also other aspects? And I want to come back to, like you mentioned, Africa Check. And we had the session with Africa Check, and I was quite enthusiastic about that because, you know, we don't have the capacity to do that checking. So here you've got a facility like that that actually does can do that, and we'd like to tap into that. So what we try to do now for more than a month is to say, okay, well, allow us to automatically pull into our websites your articles. You know, that will basically make it very immediate, and whenever they do like an update or a new article, it gets available to our readers. We can then sort of also use that in the newspaper. Well, but nothing is happening. And like after, like I've basically almost just about gave up on them, because they don't have an RSS feed, they don't have an API. It's either you go to their website and sort of try and stay up to that, which few of us have that time, or you can't have it available. But what I'm saying is, should the emphasis not be into things like that and say, how can we easily make content or resources available to small publishers? For me personally, that's more important than training, because frankly, I think it's the way we report on elections. You know, if you're very practical about it, how are you going to, it's like if a highly trained journalist going to be that much different than one that's got a basic knowledge of reporting on a hyperlocal level? I think it's different when it's like in a city where you're covering, like you're catering for a whole country. Well, taking it down to like a local level, you don't need that much knowledge. You just need someone to be able to do that. We need information that makes it easier for voters to know things like where would the voting stations be, what are their rights, that type of thing. And I think that can be syndicated in an automated way. But anyway, those are just some suggestions. Thanks.
No, thanks, Anton. Very important. And just quickly on the Africa Check one, I did get back to Africa Check again to talk to them about setting up the RSS feeds and things. They are certainly working on it. I know it's been quite a slow process, but I think they did hear you loud and clear. And we will be sending out an email to everybody with further information from Africa Check. But thank you for that input. Ananias, please go ahead.
Thank you, Kate, and good morning, everyone. Reggie, good morning. Reggie, I just want to check with you, how far can SANEF go to protect us as grassroots journalists? You know, when it comes to local government elections, those are the elections that talks to us. We live with those councillors, we live with those mayoral candidates, and it becomes very difficult to write stories about them, criticizing them especially. So I don't know, if something happens, you write a story and they are on you, how far can SANEF protect us as ground-roots journalists? I'll give you an example. 2 weeks back, we wrote a story. It was an expose of the Rustenburg local municipality failing to hire people on, it was 700 and something posts. They only hired 71 out of 700 and something posts. And we exposed that, and many were not happy. Some asked us to pull the story. Some asked us to reveal the source. So it was just chaos. But we managed to stay firm and run the story, and we continue with it. But I just want to check, how far can SANEF go to protect us, especially during these election times?
No, thanks, Ananias. No, thanks a lot. I think maybe also let me touch on what Anton said. I'll come to Ananias now. Anton, I think part of these collaborations is also from your side as AIP, because we, my understanding is that as publishers, we've got different needs. But if you, all AIP members across 9 provinces have different needs, those can all be catered for. But we can at least have one central need where it lives either on the AIP website or there's a resource that can be done. Then we can put that in, then we can sort of support that and say, when we apply in to do exactly that. And I mean, the example here, what we did with Chris Mkenga, that was not even funding. That was money from funding that was left over. Then we decided to do the Mediate project that we did, that became successful. So that's the one example. The other example is part of the funding where we applied was the elections portal that will develop an update for the SANEF website. But the different needs, RSS feeds and all these other things, if they are collated through Kate, and then Kate says, look, guys, it's 2025, you'll likelihood be applying for funding as SANEF from us as community media. These are the needs that we have. Perhaps these 3 things, include them in your application. Then we can do that. We're more than happy to do that, knowing that we are applying for that and we can deliver that to AIP. AIP delivers to you. So that's the one part. Ananias, your part is pretty much straightforward. I mean, what we have realized is most community media, they are scared. They are scared to come up. They are scared to come up and then raise their hands and then say, this is what's happening, protect me. I mean, for community media, we had a case now of Tomong Khadima, which we did with CFE in Burgersfort, Limpopo. We won that case. We supported Tomo. We had Riot Hlachwayo fighting with the Mpumalanga, suspended Mpumalanga provincial police commissioner there. He won that case. We had lawyers assisting Riot. I mean, SANEF out of his own pocket, we spent almost 200,000 on that case. And we went all the way. And that was just beyond a statement because the police commissioner was threatening Riot. So those are examples. But we need the raising of voices where you say to us as Ananias, look, this is what's happening. Possibly I'll need legal support. Possibly I'll need protection, which we don't offer protection. We're not the police, but we can say these are the resources that are available that you can use. And this is the publicity. And what we have realized with these guys is once they start realizing that the likes of SANEF are making so much noise about something, there's a backtracking, they step back and then they stop that kind of nonsense. So whenever these incidents come up, particularly during this time, you need to raise your hand and say, this is what's happening. What is SANEF doing and how can you assist? Yeah. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks. And I mean, I think, Ananias, it's such an important question that you've asked. And I think that's exactly what, so if, publishers come to AIP, tell us exactly what's going on, then we can call SANEF, you look at potential legal support, put out statements, etc., etc. So I think that's where the collective power lies. So thanks, Reggy, for that comprehensive answer. But Ananias, do you feel a bit more confident now that you've heard that?
Absolutely. No, I'm good. Thanks a lot.
Okay, good. So colleagues, any further questions that people might have to Reggy, or any questions that you just want to put on the table, or comments around elections training? I think we are coming up with some really important points and principles in terms of the kinds of support and needs that we have, and what we need to do, going forward. Moving away from just training. I think these are all very important points which have been put on the table for a while now. So, I mean, I've got one other question, Reggy, for you, which is just about the joining PI. And I'm not sure how many of our members have actually joined PI, but I wanted to get a sense from you. What is, is it a good thing to join PI? What particular benefits would you get from joining PI? Because we've certainly, from the AIP side, been saying to members, please join, there's certain benefits, etc., to being part of that. But I thought it might be useful to get you to talk to that. Thanks.
No, thanks, Kate. Look, man, there'll be obviously the benefits. I mean, the benefits of being exposed to all these resources and then having access as a member there. And based on what I've mentioned as well, whenever you have got access to that, whenever you want those kind of resources to be available to you, whether you are facing the rise of misinformation in your newsroom, where we can try to say, okay, this is where we can assist, where we can all of us sit and we ventilate ideas on how we can use the issue of, no, thanks, Chris, for sharing that. How we can fight misinformation on WhatsApp, for instance. So those will be the kind of benefits. And the more the merrier. There'll be, I don't know, should we get any kind of funding? Then that's when we need to sit down and say, these are the needs that are out there compared to just doing training. I think the training part, we hear that we have done that, and we have done quite a lot of that. But particularly the training, Look, funders also are, I mean, we had a very tense meeting with one possible funder last week, and they were interested in the same training that we don't want to do, because they were saying they need to see their money going to younger journalists, because what they see out there in terms of reporting is journalists who don't understand and who don't know what they're talking about and reporting on very sensitive topics and issues. So if you are going to do a political beat, a hard news beat, journalists need to be able to do that. So also it depends on the funder. I can say to a funder, look, we're looking for 2 million rands. We want to build this super website of resources. And they say, nope, there's no money for that. We'll give you 150,000 for a website. We can't do that. And so that's where the challenge is at. But the benefits will be there. The benefits will be there.
Thank you. So, colleagues, any further questions to Reggy? And if not, then we can close the meeting. But any final comments or questions? So, colleagues, I don't see any further questions, but thank you so much to everybody for being here. Really, really great to have this input. We are quite excited now, Reggy, because we've gone through all the key organizations from the side of PI. So I think we've got quite a comprehensive view as to the work that's been happening. And yeah, I think colleagues, please do join PI. I think it will be very helpful to do that. And I think the issues that we've covered in this session, we will certainly put together a couple of notes, and the recording of the session will be made available to everybody. So Reggy, thank you again so much for your time. Yeah, Valent, please go ahead. I see your hand up.
My humble apologies about that. Sorry. I saw Shelley typing in the meeting chat, and then I'm seeing, not Shelley and Soli now they're typing. I don't know if they wanted to ask the question or if
okay.
they're okay. Yeah. Thanks. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks, V. I was going to raise the issue, but I'm unsure about the 30% that the MDA was talking about. Was it a 30% of government ad spend or around that? Could we possibly use that funding for the next election, of any other campaign support that we as grassroots publishers can tap into?
Sorry, Shirley, you broke up a little bit from my side. So you were asking about the 30% advertising, which has now been promised by GCAS, and you're saying could the 30% advertising spend then be used on elections information?
Yes, correct.
So surely it's an interesting one. I mean, we can certainly ask Sandile Nene from the GCIS side, how that's going to work. In fact, I just wanted to tell colleagues on the line that we have decided to literally commission some research into the 30% advertising, because Reggy and I think we've been in the sector long enough. We have been hearing about this 30% advertising since 2016, but nothing real has actually happened. But now firmer commitments have been made by Sandile Nene, the deputy minister in the presidency, Kenny Moralong, etc. But we want to actually look at how is this going to be rolled out? How much actual money is going to be delivered? What is government's understanding of community media? Does it include all the Caxton publications, or the Independence and Caxton? Does it include the broadcast? I mean, who does it include? How's it going to work? How much money is actually going to be set aside? All of those kind of things. And as part of that, Shirley, it's a very good question. Let's look at, could that money be IEC advertising as well? Because I mean, one of the big questions is, when you say government advertising, does that mean the statutory bodies? Does it just mean the government national departments? Is it national, provincial departments? Is it municipalities? It's all of that kind of stuff, which is not at all clear. So the terms of reference have been drafted for a researcher to actually do that work, and it's quick work. We need a quick turnaround time in terms of getting that out. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Solly, yes, I think a Coke is required with pie. Fabulous. Very good thoughts on that one. So colleagues, Valence, I hope I've covered everybody. Any final thoughts? All right, colleagues.
I'm sorry, I'd like to just jump in there.
Oh,
I would
sorry,
like to say,
Chris. Please,
oh, I'm sorry,
go
I
ahead.
didn't lift my
No
hand.
problem.
I just want to say, with all organizations like SANEF, like AIP, we also need to give gratitude back. Thank you for the work you're doing, Reggie. We are with you. And I think all the colleagues as well need to appreciate the work that's been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. Very powerful point. Yeah, thank you, Reggie. Really. I think also it is important to say that SANEF has been an incredible support to AIP, and we truly are very, very grateful. So I think that really did need to be said. So thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, colleagues. Thanks so much. Happy Thursday. And we will talk very soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.